Parkour and its community have provided countless lessons and memories that I'll always be grateful for. I've been wanting to teach lately, so I decided to make a video in order to provide some thoughts and insights into movement after my odd 10 years or so of training. In this video, I'm going to look at the movement of one of my favorite athletes, as well as provide some of my own commentary on composing and refining lines. Hopefully, this will be helpful in some way to those of you watching. So, let's start by looking at the beautiful movement of Minh Vu Ngoc. Minh embodies two principles that I'm constantly aiming for when I'm training myself, which are refinement and rhythm. A recurring combination you'll see in many of Minh's lines is this one. I think looking at this bass combination is a great place to start because it opens up so many doors in composing lines. All you need to practice this combination is a single rail. No crazy spot with dozens of walls, just one rail. This movement combination is composed of three basic movements: the sit turn, the palm spin, and the thief. This was the very first rail line that I tried to nail down earlier on in my training. Just by looking at this combination, I initially thought most of the momentum was coming from swinging your legs around. But the reason Minh has this combination down so expertly is not because of the leg swings. He's actually moving from his hips. Instinctually for the sit turn, you might expect to find success by kicking your legs straight up to sit down on top of the rail, but the ability to carry the momentum through and out of this move means focusing on getting your hips above the rail, keeping your chest up and level, rather than scrunched and pointed down towards the floor. By doing these two things, you can keep yourself centered and controlled throughout the entire movement. Watch Minh's hips as he performs each part of this movement. You'll notice that these rail flows typically follow a wave pattern. There's a natural rise and fall, where the hips drop slightly in the transitional moments and then rise above the rail during the apex of each individual movement. In a poorly executed rail flow, if you track the hip movement, you'll notice that they will shift in position quite sharply, which results in the overall combination looking and feeling both jagged and forced. When this rising and falling hip motion is executed well, there's a smooth wave pattern you can follow that gives the overall movement a sense of floatiness. Focus on keeping your hips above the rail during each motion, and keep that chest lifted. Focusing on the orientation of these two parts of your body will provide the control and directionality you need to keep yourself centered and smoothly transitioning into the next movement. When the hips are not high enough, and if the chest isn't lifted, the body will end up slouched and rigid, rather than open and fluid. This was a huge problem for me throughout my early years of training because my body echoed a lot of my low self-esteem. I'd often ball myself up and remain very tense, keeping my chest and neck low as I tried to get through each movement as quickly as possible, rather than taking my time with the movement and allowing it to happen naturally. My friend Dimitra once said something wonderful to me. You have to forgive your body for the movements it makes. It doesn't matter if the movements don't come out looking the way you want them to. Open your chest and focus on elevating your hips and perform each move at your own pace to completion. In time, with the correct bass technique and enough practice in applying it to each movement, the aesthetic will come. Rushing through and brute forcing a swing out of your legs is always going to result in an incomplete movement. Another thing to note watching Minh's movement is that it lends itself to a very natural dance-like rhythm. In dance, the primary technique for establishing one's sense of rhythm for any song is in counting. So let's try doing it in one of Minh's rail flows.
If ever you're listening, if heaven's a prison, then I am your prisoner.
See how wonderful it looks and how well it matches up. I highly recommend employing counting in your own movement if you're struggling with rushing or having difficulty nailing your combinations down. Oftentimes, establishing a bass rhythm is all you need to get yourself to execute each component piece of your line in entirety. Since oftentimes when we get frustrated, it becomes easy to try and overcompensate and brute force the line. We're simply trying to rush through it. A slow tempo song is best for drilling combinations. Moving to a slow beat naturally discourages rushing and gives the rhythmic template necessary to letting each transitional movement breathe and expand rather than tensing up and moving too quickly to the next component piece of the line. This is why I think dancing is a wonderful building block to finding rhythm in parkour. I'm linking to a couple up rock tutorials from breaking that I used to drill in my free time, and this ended up translating excellently to my rail flow drills. I hope you'll find it useful as well. If you look at the majority of Min's lines, they generally consist of variations of a very small core moveset. On their own, these are common movements that pretty much anyone could do with enough time. But the beauty of Min's movement is his ability to cleanly and rhythmically connect each of these component pieces, often transitioning into and out of them in very surprising ways. You'd be shocked how far you can go by selecting just a few things from your entire movement vocabulary and seeing how far you can push them. For example, is there a way that you can transition mid-move between a lazy sit turn and a safety vault? Yes, there is. Min does it here. We share a wonderful common language of every kind of vault, flip, and jump you can think of. Each of those pieces is available to all of us with enough time and effort. But by arranging those pieces of the common language in our own way, even the simplest of those pieces, we can all surprise and delight ourselves, or perhaps instill those same feelings in others, just as Min did for me. I hope this video has been helpful. If you have any questions or thoughts, please reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to talk through barriers or challenges you may be feeling in your own training. If you'd like to share some of your own movement with me through video, I'd be happy to provide any feedback I can to help tackle specific technical or mental challenges you may be encountering. Thank you so much for watching, and much love to all of you.